Hello guys, good morning. Welcome back again to my vlog. So today I want to talking about something that almost everyone struggle with at some point. That's motivation, or more specifically, why motivation never lasts forever. Honestly, I think many people believe successful people are always motivated all the time, always energetic, always productive, always disciplined. But honestly, real life does not work like that. Even motivated people lose energy sometimes. Even hardworking people feel tired, confused, uninspired. And honestly, that is completely normal. One thing I realize is that motivation is emotional, and emotions naturally change. Some days people feel excited about life, and other days they feel mentally exhausted. Some morning feels hopeful, and other mornings feel heavy for no clear reason. And honestly, expecting constant motivation from humans is unrealistic. Another thing about the motivation is that people often wait for the motivation before starting something, before studying, before exercising, before working on goals. But honestly, motivations often appears after action begins. That's not viva. And sometimes people need to move first even without the excitement. And honestly, that is where discipline becomes important. I also think social media creates unrealistic expectations about motivation. Online, people constantly see productivity content, wake up at 5 a.m. and then work harder, no excuse, and stay disciplined. And honestly, while some advice can be helpful, non-stop productivity culture can become emotionally exhausting too. Because humans are not robots, bro. People have emotion, stress, mental exhaustion, and the difficult days. And honestly, constantly feeling pressure to perform perfectly can destroy motivations even faster. But wait, before I just continue my video, I just want to reply my friend's message. Wait. Maybe have something. Okay. And yet, so Yeah, you know, and then I realized is that burnout often kills motivation. So when the people overwork themselves without a proper rest, eventually their minds becomes emotionally tired. And honestly, exhausted people usually do not need more pressure. They need recovery. I also noticed that motivation feels stronger at the beginning of goals. Starting something new feels exciting. A new routines, a new semester, a new project, a new dream. But after some time, reality appears. The the process becomes repetitive, results take longer, and energy decreases. And honestly, many people quit during this stage because excitement disappears. And another thing about motivation is that people compare themselves too much. Someone else seems more successful, more disciplined, and more talented. And honestly, comparison makes people feel discouraged quickly because instead of focusing on the progress, they focus on the feeling behind. I also realized that perfectionism destroys motivation too. Some people become afraid they will, of starting because they want everything perfect immediately. Perfect result, perfect timing, perfect skill. But honestly, perfection rarely exists. And waiting for the perfection often creates procrastinations instead of progress. Another thing I learned is that consistency matters more than temporary motivation. Motivation comes and goes emotionally, but small consistent effort creates long-term result. And honestly, many successful people continue even during unmotivated days, not because it feels easy, but because discipline keeps them moving. I also think many people misunderstand discipline. They imagine discipline means feeling powerful and productive constantly. But honestly, real disciplines often looks ordinary. Doing tasks while tired, studying without excitement, continuing slowly even without perfect energy. And honestly, small effort still matters. Another thing about motivation is emotional pressure. Sometimes people become too obsessed with achieving goals quickly. They pressure themselves constantly, and honestly, too much pressure often creates anxiety instead of motivation because suddenly every mistake feels terrifying emotionally. I also realize that humans naturally experience cycle, energy change, mood change, mental focus change, everything just change. And some periods of life feel productive and others feel slower emotionally. Yeah, and honestly, people should stop expecting themselves to function perfectly every single day. That's not. Another thing I notice is that fear often hides behind the lack of motivation. A fear of failure, fear of embarrassment, and the fear of disappointing others. And honestly, fear can quietly make people avoid action completely. Because doing nothing sometimes feel emotionally safer than risking failure. And I also think environment affect motivation quickly. Negative environments drain energy quickly. Meanwhile, supportive environments let people feel inspired more naturally. And honestly, the people around us affect emotional energy more than we realize it. Another thing with motivation is a purpose. People stay motivated longer when they understand why something matters deeply to them, not just because society expects it. And honestly, goals without a personal meaning becomes emotionally exhausting faster. I also realize that rest is a part of motivation too. Many people feel guilty for resting, but honestly, exhausted minds struggle to stay inspired. Sometimes people do not lack ambition, they simply need sleep, peace, or emotional recovery, not even the complicated thing. And another thing I learned is that progress often feels invisible at first. People become discouraged because they expect immediate result. But honestly, growth usually happens slowly. One workout change a little, one study session change a little, and one good habit change a little. But repeated effort change everything eventually. I also think motivations become dangerous when tied only to emotions because emotions are unstable naturally. And honestly, people who rely only on a feeling motivate often stop during difficult days. Even imperfect routines help people continue moving forward. Another thing I notice is that many people secretly feel ashamed when losing motivations. They think, why I'm too lazy? Why can't I stay consistent? What's wrong with me? But honestly, struggling with the motivation is part of being humans. Everyone experiences sometimes, even highly successful people. I also realized that mental exhaustion and lack of motivation are not always the same thing. Sometimes people call themselves lazy when they are actually emotionally burned out. And honestly, self hatred rarely improves motivation. People usually grow better through balance, patience, and realistic experience and expectations. And another thing about motivation is momentum. Starting feels difficult, but continuing often becomes easier after movement begins. And honestly, small beginnings matter more than perfect beginnings. Reading one page still matters, doing 10 minutes still matters, and trying again still matters. I also think people underestimate how much emotion affect productivity. Loneliness, stress, heartbreak, overthinking, those things affect motivation deeply. And honestly, people deserve compassion during difficult periods emotionally. And I learned is that discipline should include flexibility too. Some days people perform strongly, and other days they simply survive. And honestly, surviving difficulty still counts. Not every day must look perfect. I also realize the motivation becomes healthier when people stop chasing impossible perfection. Progress matters more than flawless performance. And honestly, slow improvement is still improvement. We just need to be patient, just doing our life great. Yeah, maybe this video can motivate you. I don't know. So bye bye.